A website named remote-exploit.org was born in September of 2001, backed by Max Moser. He described it as all the security text, tools, links that we collect or will collect in the future will be collected in here if it's possible. The people behind remote-exploit.org are some security-interested individuals that found each other. We try to bring exclusives when possible and try to bring some smiles and light into the dark world of hacking and security. Following that, the next year, mutsonline was started as a forum around 2002 by Matti Aharoni, aka Muts. It was dedicated to showing folks the offensive and defensive sides of network and application security. Everything from penetration testing to securing and hardening your stuff to rainbow tables and hashing algorithms. It changed names to securit.co.il in mid-2003 and in early 2004, whitehat.co.il. On the site, it says, "This site aims to create a repository of tools and information for penetration testers and ethical hackers." In 2004, May 20th, Max Moser releases Auditor Security Collection at his company's website, moser-informatic.ch, as a penetration testing distribution fitted with all the tools an auditor would likely need. In late 2004, whitehat.co.il closed its doors to new registration as the administrative burden was too high. Too many people wanted in, and there weren't enough folks on the back end to deal with it. But around that time, in mid-October, Whoppix 2.4, based on Knoppix 3.6, was released. It stood for White Hat Knoppix and was released as a standalone penetration testing toolkit by none other than Muts himself. With a long list of companions, including SkyDriver for the original idea, Ill Will for perfecting and pushing it out, and of course his dog, George. In 2005, on July 7th, Muts announces that Whoppix has evolved into a new project, WHAX, as it hit version 3. And as the name implies, it's based on Slax, a live booting Slackware derivative. It was modular in all the right ways. It allowed more freedom to make easy customization of the Slax environment and almost instantaneous updating of the live boot media. Back over at remote-exploit.org, Max Moser is just as busy since the Auditor Security Collection is issuing release after release. It's a similar project to WHAX that describes itself as the Swiss Army knife for security assessments. Based on Knoppix itself, it avoided the idea of all that modularity and experimentation and didn't quite have the list of applications and features, but what it did have was structure and stability. As 2005 is coming to a close in September, both Moser and Aharoni had made the decision to merge the two projects. But there's one problem. They need a name. Something that, as they put it, didn't sound too hackish. They put it to the community that had been swirling since the early 2000s. After much planning over the next few months, on May 26th, 2006, the two projects finished the merger and became Backtrack. The distro was based on Slax rather than Knoppix to take advantage of the modularity that WHAX was already enjoying. Additionally, a company backing the Backtrack Linux distribution is born. Its name? Offensive Security, and at the time was simply a spinoff of Moser's remote-exploit.org, with the purpose of creating online training sessions that will teach newcomers how things work. Aharoni was a lead instructor, and Moser did instruction and research as he was already well established with his site remote-exploit.org. The training culminated into a standardized test, the OSCP, or the Offensive Security Certified Professional, that you can still take today. March 7th of 2007, Backtrack 2 is released, with a focus on bringing Metasploit versions 2 and 3 and working on the layout of the distribution itself. A beta for Backtrack 3, where lots of kernel testing happened, was issued mid-December, but Backtrack 3 wasn't released until June 19th of 2008. And while work started in Backtrack 1.2, Saint, a vulnerability testing and penetration testing suite, and Maltego, a platform for data discovery and forensics, was officially added. Though Saint required a bit of extra work and sign-up to get functional. In 2009, a beta for Backtrack 4 was released in February of 2009, but it wasn't until almost a year later, on January 9th, 2010, that Backtrack 4 was actually released. Its release also brought with it backtracklinux.org, which was a dedicated site for hosting news, information, and downloads for all future versions of Backtrack. And unlike the versions before it, Backtrack 4 had 2 revisions, one in May and another in November. 2011, May 10th, Backtrack 5 dropped the Slax base. And now, based on Ubuntu Lucid Links. That's 10.04 for those of you that may have missed the Ubuntu history episode. And it was fully GPL compliant with a code name of Revolution, and it's easy to see why. Like Backtrack 4 before it, Release 1 was released in August with new tools and bug fixes. And in 2012, Release 2 dropped in May with a custom-built 3.2.6 kernel with all the wireless injection goodies baked right in. And while Ubuntu-based updates were spotty at best up until this point, some new repositories were added to smooth that out and get updates to users faster. August 13th of 2012 saw Backtrack 5 Release 5 with KDE and GNOME ISOs and a VMware image. This would be the very last release of Backtrack ever. Because on January 22nd of 2013, a post on backtracklinux.org named Kali Linux, a teaser into the future, appeared with the summary. What's happened in the past year? We've been quietly developing the necessary infrastructure and laying the foundation for our newest penetration testing distribution, as well as building over 300 Debian-compliant packages and swearing in 8 different languages. These changes brought with them an incredible amount of work, research, and learning, but are also leading us down the path to creating the best and most flexible penetration testing distribution we have ever built, dubbed Kali. On March 13th, after deciding the things that needed to be done couldn't be done without restructuring everything, they just restructured. And with a shiny new development architecture, why not add a new base too? So the previous base of Ubuntu that Backtrack had used up until this point was shelved in favor of Debian Wheezy and a file system hierarchy standard compliant system. And with all that, Kali 1.0, named Moto, is released. So why Kali as the new name? They say, Hindu goddess of time and change? Philippine martial art? Cool word in Swahili? None of the above. Kali is simply the name we came up with for our new distribution. Why change the name in the first place? With all these significant changes in our distribution, we felt that we needed to convey this in the project name. Backtrack 6 didn't do justice to our efforts in the past year and wouldn't convey our new message to our users. What's the new message? We'll let you find out for yourself. It had 100,000 downloads in the first week. And with so many people jumping on board and over 300 tools to curate, a new branch of Kali Bleeding Edge Kali was released less than 2 weeks after Kali 1.0 to satisfy the folks that always needed the most up-to-date versions of all the packages. In September, using the Linux Deploy app in Android, Kali can also be installed on just about any Android device at the time. In January 2014, Kali gets a self-destruct button with version 1.0.6. Imagine this. You have an encrypted hard drive. The bad guy doesn't want to waste his time cracking a password, so he'll just coerce you to type in the password yourself. But instead of typing in the actual decryption password, you type in a nuke password. The encryption keys are destroyed and the data is safe and encrypted. You, on the other hand. And a few days later, Kali soars among the cloud. Amazon's cloud, anyway. There are AWS images now of Kali. And in the following months, meta packages are introduced to help users install only what they need. That 300 tools is now much, much more. They also introduced virtual machine platform-specific images and EFI boot capabilities. And in September, Kali Net Hunter was released as an open-source Android penetration testing platform for the Nexus line of devices, which in a lot of ways replaces the Linux Deploy app of 2013. In February 2015, and with the release of 1.1.0, the monumental shift from Backtrack to Kali is really showing its benefits from new ARM hardware support, NVIDIA Optimus hardware support, and easy upgrades with a simple apt-get dist upgrade. In May, Kali had even gotten itself containerized. Official Docker images were now available, allowing you to run a containerized Kali and its tools on any platform that could run Docker. It was also around this time that Kali made an appearance multiple times on Mr. Robot, the TV show based around an erratic cybersecurity engineer. Another rebase in August that bumps Kali up to 2.0. This time, the rebase is simply from Debian Wheezy to Jesse, but also takes on the rolling distribution descriptor. From now on, Kali will sit on top of Debian testing, fully take advantage of GNOME 3 by default, XFCE as a light option, and support KDE, Mate, E17, LXDE, and i3WM. NetHunter also gets bumped to 2.0 and comes with support for the OnePlus and Chromebook Flip. By October, Kali 2.0 had seen over 1 million downloads. So, it was time to kill off, once and for all, Kali 1.0. By January 2016, another shift. The rolling stance Kali took in 2.0 proved to work better than expected, prompting the switch to a year.release number version scheme. This was 2016.1. And like 1.0 and 2.0 before it, can simply upgrade to the newest version with a couple of commands. In August, 2016.2 is released along with specific versions of Kali with KDE, Mate, LXDE, E17, and XFCE, each with their own ISO. And to avoid the long update times on a fresh install with old media, the Kali Linux weekly ISOs are available. And they still are. And since the rolling style had still proven a smart choice, the 2.0 repositories are retired. You just don't need them. This is really when Kali hits its developmental stride and settles into a routine. The first release of 2017 was in April 2017.1. It brought with it the AC standard Wi-Fi support and better CUDA support on NVIDIA cards, making GPU cracking of most passwords trivial. In September, the second release, 2017.2, hit the shelves with new tools like apt2 and SSH Audit. And November saw 2017.3 with more tools, more updates, and new features like SMB 3.0 by default. In January of 2018, Kali finds its way into the Windows subsystem for Linux, and just like the Docker versions, allow running Kali and its native tools right from Windows. And the next month, 2018.1 makes its debut with Meltdown and Spectre mitigations. In April, 2018.2. In August, 2018.3. And in September, WireGuard VPN support is official, and so is support for Vagrant, a virtual machine environment management system. And in October, the 2018.4 release with 64-bit Raspberry Pi support in beta. In 2019, Kali saw another 4 releases. 2019.1 in February with Metasploit 5.0, which hadn't seen a major revision since 2011. 2019.2 in May saw mostly fixes, but the NetHunter release reached the 50-device support milestone. In July, Kali was quick to support the new Raspberry Pi 4, and the App Store that the NetHunter editions used was made available to the wider Android community, rooted or not, so that they could sideload common security applications. In September, 2019.3 was released with a revamp of the meta packages, which caused some initial confusion, a Kali status page to show the status of various mirrors and servers, which you can still check out today, and a few helper scripts to get you around the system and get tools prepped faster. The Pinebook also saw support. 2019.4 saw its release in November and brought a cheeky little feature called Kali Undercover. It disguised your Kali installation in Windows 10 clothes. It even changed your terminal prompt to C:. In addition to a pseudo Windows feature, the very real Windows PowerShell now had support as well. Finally, NetHunter got the ability to run as a desktop called KEX. Both Kali and Kali NetHunter KEX will now run on XFCE by default. And a few hours before the year was over, the default root login that was almost a hallmark of these types of distributions was laid to rest in Kali. For the next release, it'll act like any other distro. And a month later, with the release of 2020.1, the deal was sealed. No more root by default. The installation images were also simplified on x86 hardware with only an installer, a live, and a network image, which are the options that we see today. The ARM images were slimmed up, and a request was put out for community support for some of the lesser used ARM-based hardware. NetHunter got the NetHunter, NetHunter Lite, and NetHunter Rootless options to match. In May 2020.2, KDE Plasma saw some love, and PowerShell is almost ready by default. In August 2020.3, Zish, or ZSH, goes into testing. NetHunter gets a ton of Bluetooth hacking tools, and support for high DPI screens is baked in. While other distributions needed instructions and tinkering, Kali's solution was either click a button or type a command, and you're done. In November 2020.4, Zish comes out of its cocoon and shows off a lot of the styling and auto-completion we see today, with tons more tools and information upon opening up a terminal, giving some tips, tricks, and answering some frequently asked questions. In December and throughout its 5-season run, Kali Linux is spotted in the TV show Mr. Robot over and over again, which is a good watch, but read the back of the box first. In February 2021.1, the command not found package is added by default for when a user attempts to launch a tool that isn't already installed. Command not found will direct the user on how to install it. NetHunter also saw some big updates, including a long overdue update of BusyBox. In April, my favorite website, kids.kali.org, was launched. The site said, Imagine all of the same powerful tools used to launch complex attack simulations, now in the hands of a preteen. And they ask, can a 7-year-old really crack a password hash or learn to blind SQL injection? Can a 3rd grade master cryptography and stenography without being able to spell either one? Maybe not, but at least Terminal has fun pictures now. Yes, it was for April Fools, and one of the best.
It was a good one.
In June 2021.2 saw the addition of Kali-Tweaks, a text-based UI to customize what's included in Kali and the most useful customizations like how Zish works and displays the prompt. Gidra, a reverse engineering tool developed by the National Security Agency of the USA, was also first included in this release, as well as the open source version of VS Code, Code OSS. In September, 2021.3 was released with updates and new tools, of course, but also a full refresh of the Kali Tools website for digging up tools and finding their purpose. Also a renewed focus on running Kali in a VM using the pre-made appliances. There was also a new watch, a NetHunter smartwatch named Tick Hunter Pro. In December, 2021.4 brought support for Apple Silicon, sort of. The ISOs were meant to run within Parallels or the tech preview of VMware Fusion. And though there have been many theme changes up to now, the theme fixes and updates in this release are what we still see today. In February of 2022, version 2022.1 marks the first release that includes visual refreshes on a predictable cadence. .1 versions will now always have a distinctive visual representation to give users a clue at a glance that things have moved on for the better. This will include wallpapers, login screens, installer themes, and boot menus. And just in case you were tired of installing the Kali-Linux-everything package, there's now an everything ISO, and it's huge. In March, to anyone running on bare metal and paying attention, it would be hard to miss the word uncaputpa. The Kali folks slipped in better ButterFS support with snapshots, making Kali unbreakable or indestructible. All the snapshots were listed in the grub menu just in case you needed them, and used the Snapper GUI on the desktop. In May, 2020.2 brought Hollywood Activate, a screensaver launched manually or automatically that makes the terminal spit out all kinds of fun, made-for-TV hacker stuff. Unkaputba is also made official, and the desktops get major updates. In August 2022.3, focuses on the community with the Kali Linux and Friends Discord channel, where devs will chat with all comers after every release of Kali. There was even a contest to show off how folks customize their Kali desktops during this release. They note that Matrix was an option, but they want to be where their users are. There's also the IRC channel if you're into that. And we're still waiting on 2022.4. It's not out yet. And maybe, with it, a new contest, too.